revolution, influenced and elevated customer expectations in your sector? And what are some of the things that you have been witnessing?
So I think the digital revolution has touched all walks of life in general, right? And we see 10-year-olds as much on the phone or on the laptop as their parents and their grandparents. So that's the first thing we need to accept, that digital as a way of life, as a way of living, interacting, all of that is really part and parcel of our daily lives across age groups. So that's the first thing. What really exacerbated the use of digital really was the pandemic, and different cohorts of age groups experienced that shift differently. So with online schooling, the children started using a lot more of the laptop, the mobile phones. People in their 40s and 30s and 50s who are working had to rely on digital technology and communications to really get work done. And alongside the seniors who are living their post-retired lives, fell back on the phones and the laptops to really help them from a social, emotional wellness point of view, because none of us could get out and interact with people. So almost for a year, our laptops and our devices were our friends. And while children and the caregivers, the segment that is the children of seniors, still had other people to interact with on account of their social circle, work circle, all of that. I think for seniors, it was a very different experience because they had to find a way to pivot towards digital technology and hence adopt it. So I see that very actively now in my own home with my parents, who are so dependent on WhatsApp for their news and daily discussions, etc. And I think initially, while there was a challenge, in general, mobile telephony has become so intuitive that seniors have adopted it. That's the first thing. In the same lines, because of medical care not being easily available in person, and most people shying away from visiting hospitals, clinics, doctors, teleconsultation and telemedicine became another big, phenomenon that took off in the pandemic period. And while initially there were reservations about whether this will be effective, whether this will be, it'll have any benefit from a treatment perspective, I think over time people adapted. And whatever could be solved, through telemedicine, virtual consultations, is now continuing to be dealt with in that way. And in a way, it has democratized the way medical and health services are being delivered. So not everything has to be in person, not everything has to be on location. It can be done virtually. So that is one major shift that took place in the healthcare side of our lives, especially for our seniors who obviously need a lot of medical and health related interventions from time to time.
That's good to know, Rohit. And yeah, you rightly mentioned that our seniors have become very dependent on WhatsApp for their news. I'm not sure if it's good for us as a media industry, but yes, it's happening. So, Rohit, if I could ask you, right, when it comes to the seniors, what are some of the significant, roadblocks that, even the healthcare for that matter, what are some of the significant roadblocks that the healthcare industry encounters while delivering enhanced customer experience? And how do you sort of overcome those challenges?
So as I mentioned in our roundtable discussion the other day, customer experience is not really one touch point. It's a journey, right? So to explain through an example, if a service has to be availed at home for a senior, let's say there's a dressing related service of a wound that needs to be done on a daily basis for, let's say, about 7 days. The process of booking the service would involve some digital interface. So there would be, for example, we run campaigns that reach out to seniors. And let's say a senior sees the ad, clicks on the ad, fills out his or her details in a form, and then gets a call back from one of our command center executives. All of this process till now has been digital. There is no human intervention. Even when the executive speaks to the senior, that is a human intervention, but the appointment booking is done digitally. And after the appointment booking is done, the senior gets a confirmation again through a digital medium, which is on WhatsApp or an SMS, that your appointment is booked for so and so date. This is the person who will come to your house. This is service that you booked. Until the day the physiotherapist or whoever is the caregiver actually arrives. And post that service, again, there is a digital intervention to get a sense of how satisfied the senior was with the service. So if you see this entire journey, it's partly digital, it's partly human interface. And I think the expectation from seniors is really a bit mixed, because while obviously at their age and their experience of life so far, everything has been pretty much human driven. So their expectation is more on that side, that can we have more human interface. But for a business like ours, or for any business for that matter, economics determines what do we digitize and what do we actually keep as human interface. So our journey from our perspective will be partly both. But from the seniors perspective, they are expecting a seamless journey all throughout. I think sometimes the challenge may arise that while they are not very familiar with all of the digital media that we are using, that may cause some dissonance or some tension in the journey. And that may not lead to a great customer experience. So I think that is something where we keep working at it. Obviously, we are a fairly large business. We are well funded. So we have the capability to have human intervention wherever we know that it will enhance customer experience. But not all businesses have that luxury, right? So they are heavily dependent on digital technology to deliver the service. So I think expectation from seniors is a bit mixed. They understand that digital technology is useful in certain ways, but they are not familiar with all the ways, especially in the past where they have dealt with a human, in general. So that pivoting in their own mind from human to digital is where the challenge sometimes lies.
So technology, Rohit, let's come to that. Everybody's talking about data analytics. Everybody's talking about generative AI. However, how does the integration of data analytics and AI-driven insights contribute to improving CX? And what are some of the opportunities that lie there?
Very good question, Supriya. I think when I see my experience across industries, right from the first organization I worked with, which was essentially into engine oil, primarily retail-led, distribution-led, FMCG kind of operation. And throughout my years in financial services, real estate, what I have noticed is that there is a tendency to rely heavily on data. And often what we call as intelligence is nothing more than data. Data by itself is not intelligent. It is the analysis that makes it intelligent. So sometimes what happens is we tend to just hoard or gather data from all sources, but we really don't take out anything meaningful from it. So the first area that any team in any organization really needs to work on, including us, is to be able to take out meaningful insights from data. That is the first thing, because data in itself, it's like a pot of raw grain. It has no meaning till you cook it right. So that's the first thing. We need to figure out that whatever intelligence insights we're gathering is actually usable, actually can be interpreted, and can be used in a meaningful way. So that's the first thing. So rather than running after different sources of data, finding how to collate it, put it together into something that can be consumed and can be deployed in a meaningful way is the first task. The other piece is that most organizations that have multiple touch points for a customer experience will obviously be able to gather data from various touch points. Are we able to map this data all back to one customer? Because for the customer, every interaction that he has with us is his interaction with us. But for us, the way we look at a customer is that this is where he came to the retail store. This is when he spoke to us on WhatsApp. This is when he visited our website. This is when he left a comment on the social media post. I think the ability to map all of this and bring it into one customer persona is a challenge most companies, especially in the financial sector, struggle with. So, so really that's another area where I think we all need to work on. How do we ensure that all the data points that we are getting from our interactions with customers are able to map back into one individual. So I think that's the second area. CRM engines, automation can play a big role. But again, it is all about how mindfully and how meaningfully we're able to interpret all the data that we have gathered.
Yes, Rohit, and interpreting data, right? While we are on the topic, I mean, you rightly mentioned that data is ultimately what is leading to that intelligence, and intelligence is offering that personalization for customers, right? However, off late there have been a lot of conversations about data privacy, and there has been new regulations. I mean, the data protection bill has come in. So how can we sort of personalize and customize the experiences for our customers while keeping these points in mind?
Good question, Supriya. I think this is a challenge, not just India, but around the world. It has been highlighted. And I feel that a lot of these conversations have begun ever since social media platforms took off. Because with social media platforms taking off, and Facebook started as a social network, a way of connecting with your past friends, schoolmates, classmates, etc., and family around the world. But today it has become virtually a business-led advertising platform, so to speak. And while all of these services are free, the businesses themselves are raking in a lot of money, right? Because while they are free, the asset that they're monetizing is really us. Each one of us is the asset that is being monetized. And how does an asset get monetized if you don't share information around it? So, long story short, we are the asset, and our information, our personal information, is really what is being offered to brands, advertisers, and organizations. So, naturally, all of us would be concerned as to how much of our data is being shared, how much of it is shareable, how much of it is not shareable. So, these are the reasons why these conversations have begun. And as a responsible organization, I think all of us have to ensure that while we may have access to personal data, we have to establish the guardrails. Obviously, some of the guardrails are established by the regulators, by the law of the land. But even within that, or rather even beyond that, as an organization, we have to establish the guardrails that do we really use all of the personal data that we have? That's the first question. So again, the law tells us what we can, what we cannot use. And if you are a conscious and responsible corporate, you will follow the law of the land. So that rests the way it is. The second question is, even if the law doesn't prescribe specifically in a certain area, should we or should we not use that data? And there, I think, Supriya, what really comes into play is the intrinsic ethos of the organization. Would it be okay for me to spam somebody with 10 WhatsApps in a week because I have the number to do that? Or is it that I should do it, let's say, once a week because that is responsible behavior and that would not annoy my customer? Is a question that we need to answer for ourselves. Often what happens is in the quest to drive customer service or customer engagement, a lot of businesses, sometimes very large businesses, well-known brands, etc., they go overboard in using the customer data that is available to them without realizing that that is the very thing which is actually spoiling the customer experience. So it's a lot of self-responsibility. You are from media, this question is always there. Can the media self-regulate? Should the media self-regulate? I think that question applies to anybody who is in any kind of service to society. So that's my answer to your question.
Debate, but yes, very valid point, Rohit. So finally, there is again a lot of talk. There's a talk of a lot of emerging technologies, right? And they're changing every single day. Yesterday, we were talking about metaverse. Today, we are talking about Gen AI. However, which emerging trend or technology do you believe will have the greatest impact on the future of digital customer experience? And how can sort of organizations stay ahead of these trends and improve their CX strategy?
I think we still have to really leverage all of the technologies that are available. And different businesses in different industries leverage them in different ways. So, for example, and I'll take something which has been around for a while. So while generative AI obviously is the latest buzzword, and everyone's sort of piggybacking on what they can do with Gen AI. Metaverse has taken off in a big way, especially with Facebook, buying WhatsApp, and Instagram coming to the family. So between Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, it is like maybe like a second Google. So I can, if you can put it that way, which is available now to advertisers and brands and customers. But if I were to look at the trends, it all depends on how you use the technology. So, for example, at Antara, Metaverse is really a platform for us to reach out to our customers. Especially our segment is quite active on Facebook, the senior segment. And Facebook itself has become a sort of a quasi news, quasi opinion, quasi social networking, all of that rolled into one. In that sense, it's a very strong advertising platform. Along with that, something that we do is we actively participate in group conversations on Facebook. So if you look at Facebook as the digital equivalent of a physical social network, are we able to be in that network? Are we able to have conversations with people in that network? Not so much as a brand or an advertiser, but as somebody who understands the rest of the group. The only difference is these groups are like 1,500 people, which you could never actually meet with in the physical world. But that is something that we have actually started using. So more than what tools are available or what tools are popular, I think what really matters is, again, a strong evaluation of what tools are there in the market and how would you like to use them. So the way, for example, the way we would use Gen I is very different from a business that's into, let's say, a sort of a consumer good or a consumer durable. Similarly, Facebook, I know for many businesses is their whole and soul of advertising. I mean, they put all the money there and that's where they get business, right? But for us, like I said, it's also a place where we actually interact with seniors. We learn from them, we hear them, we listen to what they're talking about, and we absorb that in the way we roll out whatever initiatives we have planned. So for us, Facebook really is, in a way, a genuine social network besides an advertising platform.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rohit. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
And I look forward to seeing you all again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rohit.